Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Randall. This is the McClures. Links in the description if you want to help support the channel. We're going to be getting into a little bit of Trump news today. Apparently, the former Attorney General Barr had something to say, some advice for Trump. We're going to get into that and see what he's talking about.
Bill Barr, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. We don't know about this indictment on Tuesday. Fair to say you and the president have had a complicated relationship at times. Disagreement over whether you quit, whether he fired you, all of those things. But when it comes to this, you do seem to agree this is a political prosecution based on what we know.
Yeah, based on what we know, it certainly appears to be. And I think the American people see that. It's the very essence of
we certainly do, sir.
Function, which is pursuing a person rather than pursuing a real crime.
So you know his critics, though, say that, okay, every American should be subjected to rule and order and justice. And this president, well, according to the New York Times editorial board, not surprisingly, they think he flirted with that. They say Donald Trump spent years as a candidate in office and out of office, ignoring democratic and legal norms and precedents, trying to bend the Justice Department and the judiciary to his whims and behaving as if rules didn't apply to him. And as the news of the indictment shows, they do. Okay, Piece in the Atlantic back in 2021 talked about your time at the DOJ and said that you were widely seen as a Trump lackey who politicized the Justice Department. So did you ever feel pressure to bend the law or to ignore it?
He was definitely not a Trump lackey.
You know, the president's critics saying this is all just catching up with him now.
Well, as I've said repeatedly, he never directly pressured me to do anything in a criminal case. Now, he's out there tweeting all the time, which made my life difficult. And he was calling for people's scalps. And, you know, from what he said after I left, he was mad at me for not delivering scalps. But the idea that I was a toady was something fostered by the mainstream media. And which of his enemies were prosecuted? Who did I, use the criminal justice process against? And there's usually crickets, because there's not a
None. That's the actual problem. Because his political enemies were committing crimes. Barr. And apparently we're not allowed to arrest Democrats, only Republicans.
Case of that. But the other thing about this is I think the case, based again on what's being reported, the case lacks any legal basis. It's pursuing somebody on the. There's nothing inherently wrong or illegal about making a hush payment. They're saying he falsified the corporate record, but for that to even be a misdemeanor, you have to be trying to defraud somebody, and it's unclear exactly who's defrauded. This is his own company. And then finally, and most importantly from the federal standpoint, the idea that this was a campaign finance violation is simply wrong. It's wrong on the law.
So he is facing other cases. We've got special counsel investigating the Mar-a-Lago, the documents, January 6th lead up. As somebody who headed up the DOJ, are you confident they can be neutral? They will be in this case.
I hope they will be, and as I've said repeatedly, I think the document.
Well, that's not a strong endorsement. I hope that they will be. Okay.
Serious case. I don't think they went after those documents to get Trump. I think they actually wanted the documents back. And what's at issue in that case is not the taking of the documents, it's what he did after the government sought them and subpoenaed them and whether there was any obstruction. And I think that's the most serious one out there. And the other one, I think the January 6th one, is a difficult case to make, and it also runs into First Amendment issues, where are you going to draw the line between legitimate First Amendment activity, protesting an election, and actually conspiring to undo an election? So that's a difficult case to make, but I'm hopeful the department will approach it properly.
I'll ask you what
he's hopeful, folks.
Well, if the president was your client, would you
put
him on the stand? Because I got to imagine in any of these cases, if it gets to trial, he's going to want to defend himself.
Yeah, well,
of course.
I mean, I'm not his lawyer. Generally, I think it's a bad idea to go on the stand, and I think it's particularly a bad idea for Trump because he lacks all self-control, and it'd be very difficult to prepare him and keep him testifying in a prudent fashion.
Okay, let me ask you about this back and forth. Your legal opinion on.
It's funny when people say that Trump lacks all self-control and he's stupid and all these like random insults. Like, you do know his accomplishments, right? his achievements. Do you think you achieve those things with not being able to hold a conversation, without being able to think before you speak? Like, it's just retarded. It's retarded.
On the House GOP committee chairs, several of them are going to Bragg's office saying, we want answers on this, that, or the other, how you're using funding. We want you to come testify. There's been a lot of back and forth. So Bragg's office fired back the latest volley in these letters. His general counsel on Friday saying this: President Trump has directed harsh invective against District Attorney Bragg and threatened on social media that his arrest of indictment in New York may unleash death and destruction. You and many of your colleagues have chosen to collaborate with Mr. Trump's effort to vilify and denigrate the integrity of elected state prosecutors and trial judges. Basically, the Bragg office is saying we're not cooperating with any of this stuff from the House committees. Would they have jurisdiction or any authority to call him in to answer these questions?
Well, that's going to be a constitutional issue, but it's actually Bragg, it seems to me, that's jumped into the federal arena. He's interfering in a federal election process, and his case is built on an alleged violation of federal law. He wouldn't be able to survive the statute of limitations and not be able to juice what is a misdemeanor into a felony without claiming that there's a violation of federal law. So he's the one that has essentially weighed into the federal arena. And the real danger of this thing over the long term isn't so much narrowed to Trump. It's that now we have thousands of DAs around the country. Now that the Rubicon has been crossed, any one of them can sort of find federal candidates or someone or federal office holders and so forth, can find some state law they want to pursue the person on and get themselves into the national political arena.
Well, you have served this country as AG more than once. You've seen a lot in your years happen in Washington and in this country. Does this feel like one of those moments that we have crossed a line that will make it kind of an historical marker about the before and after of these prosecutions?
Yeah, well, one would hope this would be nipped in the bud by people who have some judgment, but I'm doubting.
It's not going to be.
So I do think that this is a watershed moment, and I don't think it's going to end up good for the country. Part of the problem, of course, is the corruption of the media, which has essentially contributed to the creation of a mob mentality in our country. Instead of being the restraint on mob thinking, they've essentially encouraged this kind of thing.
We try to be that here on Fox News Sunday.
Right.
Mr. Former Attorney.
Former Attorney General Bill Barr running his fucking fat mouth again. Spewing some nonsense that neither helps or hurts or does anything. This guy seems to talk a lot, never get anything done. Kind of the same thing he did as Attorney General. Accused of being Trump's puppet the entire time, but unable to achieve anything that Trump wanted done. Unable to go after any Democrats successfully. I don't even think he tried or cared. Another Uniparty member. All right, that was interesting. That was definitely interesting. Let's see what else is going on with Trump today. I know that Trump arrived in New York today because they were not protesting, but they had barricades and police and everything set up. These videos are too long. There was one video I seen that was shorter that just showed him pulling up. I was going to show you guys. Trump in New York awaiting
AG1 is
arraignment.
so much more than a greens powder. In one single scoop, it delivers daily multivitamin.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us as we start a new week together tonight at New York City. Crowds have gathered and security is tight. The entire NYPD on standby. We've got team coverage, and CBS's Robert Costa will start us off from outside the courthouse in New York City. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Nora. A surreal and historic American scene today. A former president making his way to New York ahead of a criminal arraignment, all as legal and political uncertainty hover.
Supporters cheered on former President Donald Trump as a motorcade of black SUVs shuttled him to Palm Beach Airport.
the beginning of a history-making trip that now finds Trump in legal jeopardy and the political spotlight. Once in New York, Trump made his way through a city on high alert with protesters and police officers on the streets. Trump is already on the attack ahead of his arraignment, claiming the judge overseeing the case, Juan Merchan.
They keep saying protesters on the street. Why don't they have all the footage of all these protesters?
Hates me and calling the prosecution a witch hunt.
This was a political persecution. I've been
Most
around criminal
definitely.
justice for 35, 36 years. I've never seen anything like this where you literally announce your target and revive cases with perjuring witnesses in an effort to just bring him down at all costs.
Though the indictment is sealed until Tuesday,
absolutely
sources
crazy.
say Trump will likely be charged with falsifying business records in the first degree, a felony, stemming from his alleged role in hush money paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels back in 2016.
I should not be held accountable for Donald Trump's dirty deeds.
Michael Cohen, a key witness for the prosecution, alleges Trump directed him to make the payments to Daniels. Cohen has served time in prison partly for his role in that exchange.
But that's what's funny is he supposedly says Trump told him to pay Stormy Daniels. Did Trump also tell you to take a second mortgage out on your house in order to do it? Because I'm pretty sure a billionaire who wants to pay off some porn star he's banging doesn't make his lawyer take out a second loan on his house to pay it. So there's obviously something else going on there. And it's not as cut and dry as Cohen seems to say it is.
Does ultimately get to trial?
I know he won't settle. It's not in his DNA. He will fight this all the way to the end.
On Tuesday, Trump will arrive at Manhattan Criminal Court for processing just before noon. He will be fingerprinted and may stand for a mugshot, but he will not be handcuffed. At the 2:15 arraignment, the judge is expected to outline the charges against Trump and ask for him to enter a plea. District Attorney Alvin Bragg's decision to indict stunned and angered Trump, but he has also capitalized on it. The campaign claims to have raised over $7 million since.
When they go after me, they're going after you.
Republicans came to Trump's defense this weekend.
So do we think that his mugshot photo is going to be the main campaign photo of the year, of next year?
Including potential competitors in the 2024 race.
They're trying to do all these legal gymnastics to try to act like it's a felony.
But other Republicans sense Trump's 2024 presidential campaign could now be vulnerable. And at least one rival, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, jumped into the race Sunday.
We need to have a leader that can distance themselves from some of the bad instincts that drive Mr. Trump.
And ahead of
So we need a leader that can distance themselves from some of the bad instincts that Trump has? What the fuck does that mean, retard? What does that mean? So basically anybody else? Because they obviously wouldn't have the same instincts Trump has. They're his instincts. They're Trump instincts. Nobody else can have those. You can have bald-headed retarded instincts, but you're not going to get Trump instincts, bro. What do you guys think about what's going on with Trump? Do you agree that it's political persecution? I don't see how you can see it any other way. These are literally misdemeanors from almost a decade ago. They're trying to juice into felonies. The state is trying to go after them for federal laws. They're using witnesses who are known liars and have already served time for perjuring themselves. I mean, it's a clear shit show. A clear up and down shit show. And the fact that none of these other media people are coming out and saying it is just absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, so what should we get into next, folks?